The U.S. government's trade policies play a crucial role in shaping the landscape of both domestic and international markets. With changes in tariffs, trade agreements, and regulations, certain economic sectors can be significantly impacted. As the U.S. implements new trade policies, many industries find themselves adjusting to new realities, facing both challenges and opportunities. In this video, we explore the top 10 economic sectors most affected by the U.S. government's evolving trade policies, including their immediate consequences and long-term implications. 1. Manufacturing. The manufacturing sector is one of the most directly impacted by trade policies, particularly when it comes to tariffs on imported raw materials and components. In recent years, the U.S. has levied tariffs on products like steel, aluminum, and electronics from foreign suppliers, leading to increased production costs for manufacturers. These tariffs affect everything from automobiles to appliances, making U.S. goods more expensive for global consumers. While some domestic manufacturers may benefit from protectionist policies, others face rising costs and decreased global competitiveness. 2. Agriculture. U.S. agriculture is heavily dependent on exports to international markets, particularly China, Mexico, and Canada. New trade policies, such as tariff increases or the imposition of non-tariff barriers, can have a significant negative effect on agricultural exports. The imposition of tariffs on agricultural products like soybeans, pork, and dairy products by trading partners, in retaliation for U.S. tariffs, can result in declining market share and revenues for American farmers. Moreover, farmers may face increased costs for imported agricultural equipment or fertilizers, further squeezing their profits. 3. Technology and electronics. The technology and electronics industries are directly influenced by U.S. trade policies, especially concerning the import of components and raw materials. The tariffs imposed on Chinese-made electronics and components have had a lasting impact on U.S. tech companies, which often rely on cost-effective imports for their manufacturing processes. While some U.S. tech companies may relocate their production to countries with lower tariffs, the overall cost of production for devices such as smartphones, laptops, and components like semiconductors is likely to rise, impacting both businesses and consumers. Additionally, changes in intellectual property protections and international competition policies could further disrupt this sector. 4. Automotive. The automotive sector is another major industry affected by U.S. trade policies. U.S. automakers rely on a global supply chain for components, such as engines, tires, and electronic systems. Imposing tariffs on these components or foreign-made vehicles can result in higher production costs for U.S. car manufacturers. Furthermore, if foreign automakers are subject to increased tariffs, the cost of foreign vehicles sold in the U.S. could rise, leading to higher prices for consumers. On the other hand, automakers may seek to bring production back to the U.S. to avoid tariffs, which could stimulate domestic manufacturing but also increase labor costs. 5. Retail. The retail sector is highly sensitive to changes in trade policies, particularly because many consumer goods are imported from low-cost manufacturing countries like China, Vietnam, and Mexico. Tariffs on clothing, electronics, and household goods can increase the cost of inventory for retailers, leading to higher prices for consumers. If U.S. trade policies result in global supply chain disruptions, retailers could face stock shortages, longer lead times, and higher transportation costs, all of which can squeeze profit margins and lead to increased prices for everyday goods. 6. Energy. Energy markets are also affected by changes in U.S. trade policies, especially regarding tariffs on oil, natural gas, and renewable energy equipment. Trade policies that affect the price of crude oil or renewable energy technology could influence the cost structure for energy producers in the U.S. For example, tariffs on solar panels or wind turbine components could lead to higher costs for renewable energy projects, slowing the transition to cleaner energy sources. Conversely, policies that encourage energy exports or promote energy independence could benefit the sector, boosting U.S. energy exports and strengthening domestic production. 7. Healthcare. The healthcare industry, particularly pharmaceutical companies and medical device manufacturers, is influenced by U.S. trade policies related to intellectual property, tariffs, and global supply chains. Import tariffs on drugs, medical supplies, or raw materials can increase costs for healthcare providers and consumers. For pharmaceutical companies that rely on foreign production of raw materials, tariffs could raise prices for medications. Similarly, tariffs on medical devices could result in higher costs for hospitals and healthcare providers, potentially driving up healthcare costs across the country. 8. Construction. The construction industry can be significantly impacted by trade policies that affect the cost of construction materials such as steel, lumber, and concrete. Tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, for example, raise the cost of building materials for U.S. contractors, leading to higher construction costs for both residential and commercial projects. Additionally, any changes in the availability of materials due to disrupted supply chains can delay construction projects, further increasing costs and reducing industry profitability. Conversely, policies that promote domestic production of construction materials could benefit the industry by ensuring stable supply at lower costs. 9. Transportation and logistics. The transportation and logistics industry is highly sensitive to trade policies due to its reliance on global supply chains and international shipping. New tariffs on goods moving across borders can increase transportation costs, as shipping companies and freight forwarders adjust to higher costs for fuel, labor, and customs processing. Additionally, changes in trade agreements can affect cross-border traffic, including the flow of goods through ports, railroads, and trucking routes. If trade policies disrupt the smooth movement of goods, transportation companies may face delays and rising operating costs, which could ultimately be passed on to consumers. 10. Financial services. The financial services sector, including banks, insurance companies, and investment firms, is impacted by trade policies in several ways. Changes in international trade regulations can affect the flow of capital and investment across borders, influencing market conditions and financial instruments. For instance, tariffs and trade restrictions can increase market volatility, affecting foreign exchange rates, stock prices, and commodity prices. Financial institutions that deal with international transactions may face greater risk, particularly if their investments are tied to industries or countries that are heavily affected by trade policies. In some cases, financial firms may benefit from trade policy changes that incentivize investment in certain industries, such as energy or infrastructure. U.S. trade policies have far-reaching effects on various sectors of the economy, from manufacturing and agriculture to technology and finance. While some industries may experience benefits from protectionist measures and changes in trade regulations, many others are exposed to the risks of higher costs, supply chain disruptions, and retaliatory tariffs. Understanding the economic implications of these policy shifts is crucial for businesses, policymakers, and consumers alike, as they navigate a constantly changing trade landscape. The long-term effects will depend on how industries adapt to the evolving trade environment, and how the global community responds to the U.S. trade stance.